Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Afterthought, where we talk all things mental health and real life. And tonight we are talking about why therapists need to get together. I'm going to try and pin my title here. Hello, good night, good night. There's my title. How's everyone doing? Come on in. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what the weather is like in your area. Tonight we're talking about why therapists need to get together. If you are a therapist, if you are a student therapist, if you are in placement, if you are retired but you're going into private practice, if you're leaving an organization and starting a private practice, if you have a part-time practice, anything having to do with being a mental health clinician, this is the live for you. So, question for you. Have you heard about the Therapist's Lounge? It's a high tea and networking event for all of the therapists in the general Toronto area. I haven't revealed the location yet, but once you register, once you get your ticket, then you will get an email letting you know where we are having this event. It's in a beautiful location, nestled in nature, and I cannot wait to have you, cannot wait to host you. So come on in. We're talking about why therapists need to get together. Let me know what you think. Why do you think therapists need to get together? Do we need to get together? So I am a mental health therapist. I'm a social worker and a psychotherapist. And I also, aside from seeing clients individually and families, I also provide individual and group supervision to therapists across Canada. And outside of leading that supervision group, I'm also a part of my own supervision group with some other seasoned therapists who have been in the field for multiple years. And whenever we get together, individual supervision, group supervision, my own peer supervision, it is always a good time. We take care of each other. We laugh together. We share together. We talk about the difficulties of this work. We talk about the things that no one wants to talk about, the things that our clients don't know. And it is usually quite the connection. Hello, hello, hello. Come on in. All right. Here are a few things that we're going to talk about tonight around why therapists need to get together. So the first thing is that therapy is lonely. Doing this work of therapy, it is quite lonely. Hey, Nicole. When you are off on your own and you're providing therapy to individuals, when that individual has left your office, when the client has left your space, when they have signed off from the virtual meeting, you are by yourself. And, when you're working in an organization, when you have colleagues and you have staff members around you, it's not so bad. You can knock on someone's door and ask a question. You can knock on someone's door and say, this happened in session. But when you are on your own, when you are in private practice, or when you are, hey, Catherine, or when you are, providing therapy virtually, there's no one else around you. So when people come and they tell you their trauma story, when they come and they start to talk to you about their grief, when they come and they tell you about the loved one that has died, or the disturbing medical report that they just got, and they are weeping and they are leaving that with you, when they're gone and your emotions feel like jello, you've got nobody, right? Who do you call? Who do you talk to? Your other therapist friends might be in session. They might not be available. It is very, very lonely. And we carry that unless you're really engaging in some really, really good self-care practices. We can really carry that. And so one of the reasons that it's important to get together, yes, Catherine, we all need to hear it. One of the reasons that it's important to get together is that we talk to each other about how heavy the work is. We share the challenges with each other, because to bring me to the second point is, we can't bring this home to our family and friends. We can't come home. You can't go home to your partner. You can't go home to your parent. You can't turn to your child or even your best friend and say, boy, I had a client today who was suicidal and I had to talk them out of this thing, or I had to find out if they had a plan. And, I had a colleague a long time ago when I was working for an organization. I had a colleague whose client came to the office and brought all of their medication. They were taking a whole host of medication for a number of different chronic illnesses. And they brought all the medication that they had in their medicine cupboard and brought it to my colleague and said, here, I'm going to give this to you because if I take this home, I won't be here tomorrow. Right? So we deal with a lot of heavy stuff and we can't bring that stuff home. Can't share that with your parents. Can't share that with your partner. Can't share that with your best friend. Can't share that with your child or children. It's just not fair to them, and we're bound by rules and ethics of confidentiality. So that stuff stays with us. But we can bring it to other therapists under consultation, under supervision, when we get together, when we talk and we laugh in a confined space of safety. Of course, without sharing, identifying details. It's a place where we can share. That brings me to my third point, case consultation, which is similar to supervision, but a little bit different. So case consultation is that place where you come to one sort of lead therapist, or you do it in a peer group, and you bring all of your difficult cases. In case consultation, there isn't that care of the therapist as a person that you would find in supervision, but it's a place where you can bring all your difficult cases. So my client is cheating on her partner and this, that, and the other, and I need to know how to manage this. That's what case consultation is for. Or, my client is asking for all of her notes and I'm not sure what to do. That's what case consultation is for. And so we consult with each other on the cases. Again, who else besides another therapist is going to be able to tell you what to do? Who else besides another therapist is going to be able to say, yeah, I had a client just like that last year and this situation came up and I know exactly what to do. Here's what you need to do. Or who else but another therapist is going to be able to say, as a matter of fact, here's what the college says about that. Here are the notes that I have on that. Here, use this for your case. And so that's another one of the reasons why it is imperative that therapists get together. We support each other, right? Okay, so number 4, we remind each other that we've got this, right? There are times as a therapist where you feel it's almost as though, a client comes to you with a difficult scenario. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Full disclosure, this used to happen to me. Hey, Magdalene, where a client comes in with a difficult situation and you're like, oh my goodness, man, you need therapy. And then you realize, oh, wait, that's me. I'm supposed to be the one to help you with this thing. But it seems really big, right? It seems really, really big. And you tell your client, yes, I can help you, blah, 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 blah. And then when you get together with your therapist friends, you're like, this is so huge. I don't know what to do. What if I can't help them? And then your therapist friend says, sis, brother, you've got this. You definitely can do this. Remember 2 weeks ago when such and such happened and you were able to help them? Remember when you took that training on complex trauma? Remember when you took that training on, IFS and you know all about parts work? Yeah, you can use a parts work and you can help them figure this out. And then you realize, yeah, man, I've been doing this thing for 5 years. I've been doing this thing for 10 years. I've had so many clients come through. I was working for an organization for 10 years before I launched into private practice, and it's more or less the same thing. I know exactly what I'm doing. But if you don't have the support of others around you, if you don't have people to undergird you and remind you of the rock star therapist that you are, then it can be really, really difficult to believe that you can actually do this. So just like how, you need your girls to remind you that you're a really great mom, or sometimes you need someone to remind you of that special sauce that you have, right? Your therapist buddies and friends will remind you of your therapist secret sauce. And when you go back to session with your client, you are going to be able to help them with all of the knowledge and all of the skill that you have. Because sometimes we forget that it's embedded deep within us. sometimes we feel like, if I don't have all the notes and all the training, what am I going to do? Right? But then, that training really just emphasizes what it is that you have inside of you. Actually, on Monday, I had an individual supervision session with a young lady, and we were just talking about how it's really important to have the training. It's really important to know all the different areas and tools, right? But those areas and tools, those training pieces really just pull out what is inside of you, and it manualizes it in a way, it structures it. But have you ever been in a training and they tell you that the things, and you're like, yeah, I knew, that's such a great way to say it, but I knew that all the time. That's what happens when you get together with other therapists. They pull out what's already inside of you. And so it is really, really crucial to get together with other therapists, because it's so easy to forget, right? Okay. The other reason we need to get together with other therapists is that no one else understands. No one else understands what it's like to see 5 clients in a row back to back. No one else understands what it's like to have case notes pile up on you. No one else understands how sometimes clients come to you with their trauma stories, and it triggers you about what happened when you were 6, how it triggers you about what happened when your parents divorced, how it triggers you around what happened with your own immigration story. No one else understands besides other therapists. And so we need to get around them, because when they surround you with their understanding and their support, you don't feel as alone, you don't feel as vulnerable, and you don't feel as out of your depth. Sometimes we wade into the streams of all of this work that we do, and there are times when we feel like we're out of our depth. And when we get around other people who get it, listen, Nicole can tell you, there are times when we're in my group supervision team or group, and we bring up topics, or I bring up a topic and we get into it, and the therapist will say things like, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I feel like I can't admit it to other people. I'm so glad you're talking about this. I'm so glad I came to supervision tonight. This was so helpful for me. I was afraid to mention this to my other colleagues. I was afraid to mention this to other people that I know, because they might think that I'm not a good therapist. But the thing that you are struggling with, the thing that you are worried about, I'm gonna guess that 9 out of 10 therapists are struggling with the same thing. They are dealing with the same problem. So don't you worry. You bring it up when you are around your other therapist friends, and get the support that you need. There's absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. All right. Another thing that I have here is that oftentimes people out there in the non-therapist world, they believe that all we do is listen to people for a living. They're like, oh, you listen to people? I can do that. What's so special about that? Right? But when people are separating after a 35-year marriage, when people have lost their firstborn child, when people find out that they have terminal cancer, when people are talking about childhood abuse and witnessing unspeakable violence, it's more than just listening. We're holding space for them. We're walking them through that trauma. We're helping them come up with solutions. We're helping them make crucial decisions. We're throwing back questions at them for them to find the answers within themselves. Listen, this is more than just listening. And other people outside of this therapy space, they just don't get it. Meanwhile, they mean well, they do, but they just don't get it. All right, come on in. We're talking about why it's important for therapists to get together with other therapists. So the other part is, and I alluded to this earlier, is that we help each other out with the vicarious trauma that we experience. I tell people all the time that I absorb stress for a living, right? And what that means really is that people tell me their trauma stories, the stories that people tell you, their trauma stories, the stories that they are, skeptical of telling other people because other people won't understand, right? When a client has something harsh that has happened to them and they don't want to tell their best friend, they don't want to tell their spouse because They won't understand. They won't know what to say. People are going to judge them. They don't want to dump all of their stuff on other people. They come to therapy and this is where they place it. And sometimes the reality of what they have to say is really hard to hear. Sometimes they get in the details of the trauma that they've experienced, the violence that they've experienced, the violence that they have witnessed. And they get into detail. Things like, intimate partner violence, things like childhood sexual abuse, things like, really deep grief. And they need other people around them. Hey, Nicole, they need other therapists around them to help us. We need other therapists around us, to help us through the vicarious trauma that we are experiencing. Because again, we cannot take that home. And so when you get together around other therapists, they help you through that. They remind you, they're like, listen, how long have you been sitting at your desk? Do not forget to get up and take a walk. Take a break, right? Listen, I've been in this field for a really long time. And it was another therapist who reminded me, do not forget. Yes, I schedule in like bathroom breaks. I schedule in time for my notes and stuff. But, it was another therapist who reminded me, hey, give yourself outside of your lunch, give yourself an extra half an hour here or there, so that when you hear a really difficult story, when you hear a story that sits right here and you cannot shake it, you can get up and you can go for a walk and not have to worry, oh, there's another client waiting for me. There was another therapist that reminded me of that, right? It's, yes, Nicole, the client doesn't think of the impact of the story on someone else. And really, as a client, you shouldn't have to think about the impact that your story is having on the therapist. It is a therapist's job. This is why we're doing the work, right? It is a therapist's job to provide space for the client. It's a therapist's job to hold space for the client. It's just like, Nicole, I know that you're in ministry. It's just like if you are preaching or you in the church, the congregation is not going to be thinking, oh, the pastor must be tired after, preaching that message. The congregation doesn't really think that way, right? And so and it isn't necessarily the congregation's job to think about that either. And so it's not the client's job to really worry that this story is going to be heavy for the therapist. It's the therapist's duty to build in techniques and strategies and space to take care of the self. Because at the end of the day, we're humans too. And we have to be sure that we put things in place to take care of. Yeah, that's right. They don't. We have to ensure that we put things in place to take care of ourselves. And that's why it's so important for other therapists to get around other therapists, to get around each other, to help each other walk through that, right? I had the experience a long time ago. You think you need to come? Yes, you should come. I have had the experience, when I was in school. I was working a very demanding part-time job. I was in school full-time, and I was in the middle of my placement, and there was an incident at home, and we almost had a house fire. And, I had to sort of, I had work bright and early the next morning and school in the afternoon. And what ended up happening was myself and my partner, we bundled ourselves up because I needed to go for a walk. It was a dead of winter, and we went for a long walk. What's up, Gavin? We went for a long walk in the middle of the snow because that's what I needed to clear my head. Hey, Tamara, that's what I needed to manage the stress that I was under. Hey, everyone, come on in. We're talking about why therapists need each other. And so it's really, really important when we get around other therapists, they give us ideas of how to take care of ourselves. They give us ideas of how to manage the stressors that we're under. Okay, so the other reason we need to get around other therapists, which is related to the vicarious trauma piece, is that they help us avoid burnout. And when I talk about avoiding burnout, a lot of people think, there are these huge, heavy strategies that we have to put in place. Listen, a few weeks ago in supervision, I was talking with one of the therapists in the group about self-care. And she was saying, listen, I don't even have time to eat lunch. I have so many clients throughout the day. Yes, yes, Tamara, it recharges us when we get around each other, right? Come on in, everyone. You know, yes, around burnout. People think that there are these huge strategies that we have to implement. But when I was in supervision the other night, we were just talking about how, you know, the therapist was saying she hardly has time to have lunch. She hardly has time to go to the bathroom. After like 4 clients in a row, she's bolting to the bathroom and bolting back because the 5th client is waiting. And all of us were like, sis, here is what you need to do. You need to build in time. You know, why don't you pack a lunch from overnight? Make yourself a salad if you can and throw some chicken on it, you know, in the afternoon. Sit down, have your lunch, sit down on the front stoop if you need to, sit down on the couch and watch a daytime soap if you need to, but give yourself that space. Because if you don't take care of yourself, I mean, this statement is as old as time. But if you don't take care of yourself, who is going to take care of your clients? And if your clients are your business, you're going to lose it, right? Yes, Tamara, we need other therapists around us to normalize and validate our own experiences. We can be doing that for the clients and not have anyone do that for us, right? Hey, Wendy, come on through. Just talking about why it is that therapists need other therapists. We need each other. We need each other. We need each other. Okay, so here's my other point, and then I'm going to go through all the points again. Guess why we also need each other? We need each other for the dark humor. Hey, Sophia, if you know anything about dark humor, I want you to throw up some hearts. Because who else is going to laugh about, you know, feeling tired during session? Who else is going to remember when you were doing session face-to-face and your tummy started to rumble very, very loudly in the therapeutic office? Who else is going to understand that such and such is not your favorite client, and when you see her on the roster for the day or him on the roster for the day or that person, you roll your eyes and go, right? I'm going to need a walk before this person. I need to, you know, who else is going to understand that when you see that particular person on the roster, you're going to think to yourself, man, I need a glass of wine, right? Who else is going to understand that, right? But we know it. And all of you are laughing because you know it's true, right? But we can't say that to everybody because we're therapists. We're supposed to hold everyone in positive regard. And we do. We love all of you. We look forward to connecting with you. Some of you more than others. Because as we know, some of the clients come into our space and some of them take our energy and some of them bring energy, right? And we look forward to the ones who bring us energy. And when we see the names of the ones who are going to take our energy, we're like, Lord, right? But we know it's true. And so because we can't laugh and talk about that with everybody, because, you know, people are going to judge us, right? We have to be sure to get around each other and we can laugh and talk about that stuff, right? What are some of the dark humor things that you laugh about or that you wish you had another therapist to laugh about when something happens in your session? Let me know. Put it in the chat. I want to hear. Yes, Wendy, real talk. So while you guys are putting in some kind of dark humor in the chat, I'm going to go through all the points again, why therapists need each other. So the first point is therapy is a lonely road, right? You are in it by yourself. If you have a colleague, that's great. But in this pandemic era, a lot of people are still not in office. And so it will require a quick text or a phone call. And sometimes the other person is in session. I can't tell you how many times I've had to just ignore my phone for 2-3 hours because I'm in session and I miss a call, I miss a text. So it's lonely. And so we need each other because in the loneliness, you can feel incompetent. In the loneliness, you can feel out of your depth. In the loneliness, you can forget that you are wise and you're skilled and you can do this. Again, so number 2 is the other reason why we need therapy friends around us is because we cannot bring it home to our family and friends. We can't bring this home to our partners. We can't bring this home to our besties. We can't bring this home to our children. The difficult things that we have to hear, the things that we're struggling with, the challenges that you're having with your clients, you just can't. There's confidentiality. There's ethical issues, right? And so we need other therapists where we can share stuff with them and get the support that we need. And around the support that we need, the other reason is case consultation. Similar to supervision, but case consultation is specifically consultation around your cases, where you talk about the difficult cases, you bring your difficult cases to your colleagues, and they say, hey, Lara, you bring your difficult cases to your colleagues, and they help you get to the bottom of it. They help you find the answer. So you can go back to your client and go, yeah, I figured it out. I'm ready to help you now. This is after you've gotten the input of like 10, 12 people, right? It's really good to have case consultation. And you can't do that by yourself. So we need community. We need the therapist community. You need the therapist around you. Other point is we remind each other that we've got this. We remind each other that, hey, remember when we were on that team and we did that thing? Don't forget that you have training in infant mental health. Don't forget that you have training in postpartum depression. Remember when we did that training on, CBT? Well, you can use that and you can turn it this way. And so, when you're around other therapists, they remind you that you've got it. They remind you that you're awesome. They remind you, hey, don't forget that thing that you know. They remind you as well that it's not just about the training, that it's embedded deep within you. I like to say that, we don't choose this work. I like to say it chooses us. Yes, Wendy, other therapists get it. They understand and can visualize what your challenges might look like. Exactly. All right. The other thing is that, no, again, to Wendy's point, no one else understands what this work is like. A lot of people think that all we do is listen to people for a living. All we do is chit chat all day. Listen, that chit chat all day is, when nighttime comes down, you are done, right? Who else feels like after a day of clients, you don't want to talk to nobody, right? I hear, right? Sometimes it's all I can do to hang out with my kids at the end of the day. I give them a part of me. And then when they're gone to bed, I'm like, ugh. Because it is exhausting. It is draining. You need listen, I'm not here to supervise you tonight, but you need a good night's sleep. You need to eat nutritious fruits and vegetables. You need to eat a real meal throughout the day. Don't go throughout the day hungry, and pace yourself. Anyway, I'm not here to supervise you tonight, but just a reminder that you need to be around other therapists because they remind you of taking care of yourself, because they understand while other people won't. Next point, we help each other through things like vicarious trauma, because we hear hard stories all day, every day. Some clients may not be trauma clients. Some clients may not be, abuse clients. Some clients might have anxiety. Some clients might have depression, but sometimes that anxiety and depression can be hard, especially when we get into the whys of what's happening, right? It's not just about, here's some strategies for the depression. Sometimes it's about peeling back those layers and finding out what's going on there so we can really heal what's going on at the bottom. And listening to those stories can be really, really, traumatizing if you're not careful. If you don't have the support of other therapists around you, that vicarious trauma can really get you. And then we get to things like burnout, right? And the therapists are the ones who can help you. I tell this story all the time. If you've heard it before, I'm sorry. I just repeat it all the time for those who haven't heard it. I have been to the place when I was working for a corporate organization where I was getting ready to take like my third stress leave because I was getting to that place. And when I had gotten to the place where I needed to take the first stress leave, I didn't even recognize it. I knew that I didn't feel well. I knew that I didn't feel right. I knew I felt burdened, but I didn't know that I was getting to the place where I could be approaching burnout. And a colleague was one who popped her head into my door one day on her way out for lunch. And in the wonderful, sweet way that therapists do, she just turned her head to the side and said, Roxanne, how are you doing? You okay? And cue the waterworks. I just started bawling. She came into my office, she shut the door, and she said, what is going on? And I just started to tell her how burdened I felt. And she's like, girl, what would you say to a client if they came to you? And she said, I know what you would tell them. You would tell them to go to the doctor and get a letter to take some time off from work. And that's what you need to do. And so that was the first clue that, hey, work is causing me a lot of stress. And so I went to the doctor, I got a note, and that's when I began to realize burnout is real and you do not want to get there. But do not underestimate the impact that another therapist can have in coming alongside of you and helping you recognize what's going on and helping you walk through what's going on. All right, and the last, but certainly not least thing is therapists get the dark humor. Therapists get when you do not want to go to work. Therapists get when you're like, they don't pay me enough for this stuff. Therapists get when you're like, sliding scale, I don't know about that. Or therapists get it, therapists get it, therapists get it. Therapists get when you don't want to see that client, but you have them first thing in the morning. Therapists get when you want to reschedule that client because you're feeling drained and you're like, today is not the day. So listen, what are you going to do as a therapist, as a student, as a therapist trainee, as someone who's in placement, as someone who is going into private practice, someone who is thinking about private practice? I want you to be intentional around getting around some other therapist colleagues. And I would be remiss if I did not tell you that I have just the thing for you. I am hosting what I am calling the Therapist Lounge, and it's happening a week from Saturday, so the 16th of October. If you live in the general Toronto area and you are in the mental health space, I need to see you there. So you need to go to bit.ly/therapy lounge, uppercase T, uppercase L, bit.ly/therapy lounge, and get your ticket. We are close to being sold out and I do not want you to miss it. So make sure you get your ticket, get around other therapists, get recharged, get re-energized, get the support that you need, get the laughter that you need. We have all been sitting around our computers for the past 18, 19 months, and we are lonely, we are drained, we are exhausted. And yes, you might have hit the patio with your girlfriends over the summer, but your girlfriends don't understand this work. So you need to get around some other people that do. The other thing that you need to do when you're there is get some referrals. Do you know people who specialize in postpartum depression? Do you know people who specialize in seniors and aging? Do you know people who specialize in CBT, in grief? You need to be there. Give people some of your business cards and get some of the awesome swag that we have in store for you. If you are not sure, if you missed the link, hit me up in my DMs and be sure to get your ticket before we sell out. I hope I see you there. I'm gonna let you guys go because it's past 8:30 and I know you have a life to live. If you're a therapist, you're probably tired. So you guys take good care and I will see you right here next Wednesday for more After Thought. You take care and walk good. We'll talk soon. Cheers.